What's going on, YouTube? What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy, the author. Right back at that ass again. Here's another one. I just want to make this video, man. This is a follow-up to the Kalief Browder story part 2. The video I made yesterday. So there's a couple of points that I wanted to touch on that I didn't touch on last video. And just to catch you guys up. Basically, this is a story about a 16-year-old kid who was allegedly accused, or who was accused of allegedly stealing someone's backpack. And then they took him off, shipped him off, or he was arrested, taken to Rikers Island, where he awaited trial. And they kept delaying his trial, and he ended up being on Rikers Island for 3 years without even being convicted. So they eventually had to, everyone had to eventually come forth and admit that they didn't have, or the DA had to come forth and admit that they didn't have the quote-unquote witness who had accused Kalief of stealing a backpack. All right. And here's the thing, man. I mean, I went and reviewed the video for a second time to initially make my point. So I mentioned in my first video, man, that pretty much the justice system, the injustice that was served throughout this case was appalling and was disgusting. And like I said, Kalief spending 300 days in solitary confinement, and this is a 16-year-old kid. So this is a teenager, so I don't even know if I would have had the strength and the stability to, maintain who I am. And pretty much, I feel I'm a strong person, but I don't know if I would have been strong enough to be able to, at 16, be able to undergo. I mean, there's some grown men who would crack being in solitary confinement for more than 2 weeks. I mean, to be in solitary confinement for 300 days straight and you're only 16, 17 years old has to be something, has to be, that has to be one of the toughest things. Not to mention that they have some of these adults staying in solitary confinement for 20 and 30 years, which also I think, Barack Obama was talking about, doing away with solitary confinement for 16 and 17 for teenagers. I think they should do away with it for adults as well, man. I mean, at least have a cap on it where it won't go past 14 or 15 days. You got some of these full-grown men who've been in solitary for 30 years, 20 and 30 years. But my point being, and I know these guys are no angels, but at the same time, you can serve time. It comes between a fine line between serving time and being tortured. But yeah, my point is, man, and I'm not at all advocating for people who've done shit, criminals, but at the same time, pretty much you have to draw that fine line between, serving time and, like I said before, pretty much being put in a torture position. But like I said, this in my first video, the part 1, this situation, man, I mean, it's bigger than this actual one story. I mean, you got blacks all around the world that have run into injustice with police. But him spending the 300 days in the solitary, and the judge delaying his trial and all that, and him getting jumped and beat up, by the other inmates because he wanted to stand alone, because he wouldn't go along with the program. In terms of giving up his commissary and all of his goods to other inmates, and to see the guards actually support that type of behavior. They've supported the inmates while they brutalized other inmates. They said the guards actually went to the gang leaders and told them to pretty much establish their own form of discipline. And basically, the guards are able to step back and have more free time to themselves, in addition to being able to profit by bringing drugs into the jails and prisons, and profit and selling those drugs to the prisoners and making additional profits off of that. And this is Rikers Island, which is in New York City. But I'm pretty sure it's not the only prison that's going through corruption. I met some guards too that pretty much admitted that they were a part of that. I think I met a guy who actually did work at Rikers, and he was talking about how he pretty much was able to, bring drugs into the facility or bring whatever he wanted into the facility, charge the prisoners a lot of money for it. And, and it's like a type of thing where you can't lose whatever price you ask for. If you're bringing the stuff in, the prisoner has to pay it. I mean, he doesn't have anyone else to get it from because he's incarcerated. But anyway, like I said, all that is appalling. And like I said in my first video, the worst thing about that situation was that, no one could get Kalief's bail. I mean, the bail was only $900, and it took his mother 2 weeks to get that. His brother cried as a result of what happened, saying he's sorry he couldn't have been more of a brother. He was his older brother, and he says, at the funeral, he says he was sorry at the Kalief's gravesite. He said he was sorry that he couldn't have been more of a brother and get Kalief out of that nonsense. But yeah, so I watched the video again, and it shows that they had to go across the street to a neighbor. Their neighbor eventually gave them the $900. And this needs to be said, man. I mean, and it took 2 weeks for them to get that. Now, of course, the father didn't give any money, which is typical in a lot of these scenarios. But this has to be said, man. Again, like I made my first point in my previous video. Now, they had one neighbor nice enough to give them $900. My point is that in the average black community, again, man, almost everyone, in the Bronx, they said the Bronx is the poorest borough hands down in New York City. I bet you, if you go into the poorest communities, them tall projects that they have with the bars on the windows, I bet you could find a PlayStation, 2 or 3 PlayStations, 2 or 3 4K TVs, clothes, shoes. Sometimes you'll see a big Escalade truck parked out back. Now, I don't know how you have a $30,000 truck and you don't own a home, but and I'm not saying I'm perfect either. And am I saying that they shouldn't have anything? No. But if you spending all this money on these products, it's people who make twice as much as people who live in the inner city. They make 3 times as much as some of the people in the inner city. And they don't spend half as much on merchandise, on this type of merchandise. And this merchandise that we're spending money on, these aren't companies that invest in the inner city. I repeat, all these expensive clothes and shoes and cell phones that we're buying, that money, those companies that you're buying, those products, those companies do not invest anything in the inner city. That company won't create any jobs, anything for the black community. They won't help better the social economic platform, the political platform, anything. And I'm gonna make another video too talking about the cell phone, because I went to this party that my cousin had about a few weeks ago, and it was pretty much a riot started in the party because a girl lost her $800 cell phone. And she looks like she's probably no more than 18, 19 years old. So more than likely she's probably living with her parents, and she owns an $800 cell phone. I mean, how can you own something and then she set it down because she's young, so she set it down to be charged, supposedly, and and then someone stole it. But here's my thing: I would never pay $800 for a cell phone, and if I did, I wouldn't lay it down. But that's another video. I'm gonna get to that later. But my point is, and you will find these expensive cell phones as well in these black communities, and they show the bail bonds office, I guess, in the Bronx. I'm not sure if there is probably one of many, but They show one in the documentary, and they said that they will pawn items as well. If you give them a cell phone, you give them jewelry, they will pawn merchandise, and you can use that for bond money to get your loved ones out of incarceration. And so, for them to have to go to one neighbor who said yes, that all of that burden shouldn't have been on that one neighbor's back. The one neighbor shouldn't have had to pay $900. If you said, okay, we'll go to 9 houses and collect out 100, that's $100 a piece. I mean, if we have expensive plasma TVs and all that, we should easily have $100 a piece. When Khalid said he was a blood or whatever, he had about 8 or 9 friends. Each one of them don't have 50 to 75 bucks a piece. And that's what I'm saying, man, in terms of raising money and things of that nature. That was the most, crippling thing to me. The saddest thing is that, we can't raise small amounts of money. Like I watched the video again. They said a lot of those guys are in there because their bonds are between $15 and $500. They said 85 to 90% of them, they don't have $100,000, $200,000 bond. A lot of those kids, especially a lot of those juveniles in there, their bonds is between $500 to $1,500. So if your bond is $1,500, like this one kid's, you go to a bail bondsman, it's going to be like $900, and we can't raise that. If it's $500, you go to the bail bondsman, it might be $250, because it's usually lower once you go to the bondsman, because they, I think they work along with and I'm not totally sure how this works, but every time you go to the bail bondsman, I know the amount is significantly less than what the court presents. So if the court presents $1,500, 9 times out of 10, the bail bond is going to be about $900, like in Kalief's case. But some of these guys, where their bail is only like $600, I mean, you're talking about $200 to get them out. We don't have that. I know they were saying, okay, that's the poorest community. I got that, but I guarantee you, if you go into most of those houses in the inner city, you will see about 7 or 8 pairs of Jordans. You will see through $5 or $6, $800 cell phones. You will see about 5 or 6 4K TVs. You will see all of this, man. And it's like and you will see clothes and jewelry. The same kids who go to school making fun of other kids for not having the $200 Jordans, they come from these same neighborhoods that can't raise $900 to get someone out of jail. Like, that's crazy, man. But yeah, but my other point that I failed to mention was that, so as a result of, once this young brother, I think he was 21 once he killed himself. He was 16 when he went he went to Rikers Island, and he was 21, I believe, when he took his own life. So this was, I think it probably was about a few years after he was released. And he probably had some type of post-traumatic shock or something like that. But here's the thing now, as far as those who they deem, after he committed suicide, the people that they deem responsible, the primary people that they deem responsible for his death, in terms of, having Khalid put in a position where the trial kept being delayed. Every time he went to court, I think he went to court over 30 times. Every time he went to court, the trial was delayed. So for the system failing him, the face of this failure, even though he mentioned a lot of prison guards who also beat on him, because prison guards beat on him, inmates beat on him because he refused to join the gang. And, and the DA didn't really care. But the primary names, I wrote these down, the primary names they put out there are Norman Seabrook. I guess this guy is one of the powerful union owners. He controls the union for the guards. I guess for all the guards in New York City or something like that. And he's president of the guards union, and he they blame him for the brutality of the guards and things of that nature. Not saying he's not a part of it, because a lot of these blacks in high positions, you know, they use them as the tools, as the whipping stick. You know, back in the day, you know, whoever was doing the dirt, that was the face of the dirt. So back in the 60s or like the 50s, if a white person spit on you, a white person spit on you. Now they can get a black person to spit on you. They don't even have to do the dirty work. Now, am I getting racial? I'm just getting factual. Now they put this brother's name on it, Norman Seabrook. Another person, Robert Johnson, who was the DA at the time, another black guy. He was the DA for the past 26 years. They said he could have did a better job in terms of getting Kalief a speedy trial. You know, it was up to him to make sure that all that madness didn't happen with all those judges underneath him. He should have controlled that situation to where Kalief wasn't being held without being convicted first. Okay, another three. These are the three primary faces. We got Norman Seabrook, Robert Johnson, and Darcel Clark. She was one of the 9 judges that continued to delay Kalief's trial. Even though a lot of the lawyers and things of that nature knew that they didn't have a case, because the guy who allegedly stole or allegedly accused. I mean, and here's the thing too. I mean, now the Mexican guy that Kalief supposedly stole the backpack from, his brother accused Kalief of stealing the backpack. I don't even think the actual victim talked to police, but his brother, from my understanding, his brother was the one who said, because the dude said he talked to his brother. He said his brother said that 2 black guys stole his backpack, and then his brother was the one who did all the talking, and he told police that that guy robbed my brother. You know, they say he changed, the accuser changed his story 3 times. But the guy who had his backpack stole, his brother pointed Kalief out. But the Darcel Clark was one of the female judges, black female judges, who kept pushing off. You know, allowed. She's one of the 9 judges that allowed the court to keep extending Kalief's date, whereas every time he went to court, they weren't ready to review his case. They weren't ready. And the prosecution or whoever knew that the guy who had his backpack stole allegedly had already gone back to Mexico, so they already knew they didn't have a case. Now another judge tried to get Kalief to plead. They said, okay, well, you could, you know, if you take 3 months and just say times, and we'll let you do that, and then you know you'll serve those 3 months, and then you'll get out. Otherwise, you could do up to 10 years. And that the brother was like, Kalief was like, no, because I didn't do it. And then they came to the point and said, well, if you just say you're guilty, you know, we'll let you go home tomorrow, because they knew they had messed up. They knew they didn't have the witness. And then he was like, no, because if you offer me something like that, then you know good and doggone well that I didn't do it. And then eventually they had to let the kid, they just let him out at 2 in the morning on the sneak tip. They had to just let the kid go because they know they didn't have. But my point being, Darcel Clark is one of the judges they blamed. Okay, Norman Seabrook, he's the union president of the guards, one of the most powerful union presidents in New York City, and Robert Johnson, the DA. Okay, all black. Now they put them as the face of. They put them as the face of the people who messed this case up. One of the reasons why New York City may end up owing this family millions and millions of dollars. They put their face on this whole debacle. Now, granted, I'm not saying these people didn't make mistakes and that they weren't horrible people, or they didn't make horrible decisions, but a whole system failed this guy. A system that's a lot bigger than Robert Johnson, the DA, who eventually ended up stepping down, Darcel Clark, and Norman Seabrook. Now, I'm not saying blacks don't care about other blacks. Yeah, especially the middle class. I mean, they don't care much about the poor blacks, and poor blacks don't want to have nothing to do with the bourgeoisie. You know, I'm not saying that I want to have anything to do with a lot of thugs myself, but at the same token, it was a whole system that failed this kid. But those three are the primary faces that they're going to place on this thing to make it look like, okay, it's your fault. Because what ended up happening was they went ahead and Norman Seabrook, that union leader, the union leader for the union for the guards, for the prison, the leader of the prison guards union, they ended up raiding his house after Kalief committed suicide. Then they ended up raiding Norman Seabrook's house, and pretty much found, talking about now he's been taking payoffs and kickbacks, and that he pretty much, they have him, they were watching him, and they have it recorded, him talking about it's time for him to get paid, and he was taking the pension funds. They said he was taking the guards' pension funds and putting them into hedge funds. So he's coming down. Khalid's already down. They're gonna take him down. They already took him down, and Robert Johnson was forced to step down, and Darcel Clark and Robert Johnson, who was the DA, he was forced to step down, and Darcel Clark, the one who was promoted to DA after Robert Johnson stepped down, she's catching a lot of flack and scrutiny. So even though she stepped up to DA, I mean, she probably won't advance again if she ends up keeping that position. So they're the face of the system which failed Kalief Browder. All three black. Ain't that something? So what's my point? My point is this, man. I mean, it seems like a lot of blacks they put in these high positions are just there to take in most cases, they're there to take the fall. You're the fall guy. And so who loses? Who loses in this, on all this? Now we know good and damn well blacks don't control the criminal justice system in America. We don't even control our own communities. So how are we going to control the criminal justice system? But those who took the hardest fall so far have been Robert Johnson, Darcel Clark, and Norman Seabrook. They've caught the most scrutiny and pretty much have taken the biggest downfall so far. No one else thus far. Now you see that? So I mean, black people, copper colored people, Hebrew Israelites, so on and so forth. Man, it doesn't matter what end of the spectrum you're on. You gonna get it, man. You're gonna get this fire, man. They're gonna give it to you, man. Whether you on the high end of the stick or the low end of the stick. At the end of the day, Kalief fell. Norman Seabrook looked like he may be destroyed. After some of these guys, Robert Johnson, he spent 26 years as a DA, and I'm not saying these are great people. They did make mistakes, but they're the face of this debacle. They're the face of it. See that? They're the face, so they're the first ones to go down. So if New York City has to end up paying this family lots and lots of money, they're the primary ones that are at blame. Not anyone else. So black people, again, even the ones who make it high up in the justice system, again, you are not the champ. You're not the champ, man. You see that? You're not the champ. You're not the champ, man. You're gonna get it, man. They're gonna give you this fire, man. You gonna come down. The 16-year-old gonna come down. Whether you the 60, whether you Khalid Browder or you Robert Johnson, you gonna get it, man. You the primary. You the ones that's gonna get the brunt end of the stick. They could have been treating you well, Robert Johnson. They could have been treating you well for 30 years, and then you fall on your neck. That's why I said the community needs to. And I know there's different classes of blacks. And what am I asking? Am I asking every middle class black to reach out to every poor black? Realistically, it's going to be hard for that to happen. But at the same time, man, I mean, you know, you need to have some type of, do your jobs. If you're in a situation, man, it's best. It may be best for you too, because they can bring you down either way. But it may be best for you to show some compassion towards your own, man, and not be, you got some blacks that are the most vicious towards their own, and love the people who hate them the most. And I know that's based on Stockholm syndrome and loving the ones who put their foot up your ass on a daily basis, and so, oh, are you preaching racism? Well, I think every group, practices some type of racism within the group. Um, when you look at capitalism, it's not a multiculturalism type of concept or process. Hindus work with other Hindus, and the Indians work with other Indians. Asians work for other Asians. Whites typically promote other whites, even though they hire us. They typically promote other whites at a faster rate. Puerto Ricans are going to promote other Puerto Ricans. You know what I'm saying? So that happens. That's just something that happens. They tell us to believe in multiculturalism and things of that nature, but that's not how the economy works. That's not the real life. So I mean, black people, you got to keep in mind, man. Whatever end of the spectrum you're on, you still are vulnerable to getting the short end of the stick. You're gonna get all fault. You're gonna get all blame. You're gonna get all the brutality. If we can't find a way to protect ourselves and protect our own against this monster, against the dragon, then we all gonna get picked off individually, man. And that's really the only way I can really say it. It needs to be said. I mean, it's not like you feel that you're in that perfect place where everything's going well, and that's a good thing. To make earn your money and make rank in your organization or whatever field you're in. But we need to be doing more business ownership, even if it's a small business. That way we can, and even if it's small, if you're only gonna make $30,000 or $40,000 off of it, maybe that's worth it. Then trying to, because I was raised like that too, saying it's all about getting a job. I'm not opposed to getting a job, but these organizations, whether you are in the government or you're in the public or the private sector, um, you're gonna really, black people don't fare well in these organizations in America, man. Now you may make some rank, but again, look who they placed as the face of this debacle. Three blacks. Robert Johnson, the DA, Darcel Clark, one of the judges, who was later, promoted to DA, was catching a lot of scrutiny. So she's not gonna know a moment of peace in her position. So she's having the toughest transition from going there's a lot of people when they're getting promoted, they have an easy transition, and then you catch all the flack once you've been in the position for a while. But she's transitioning from judge to DA, and they already are questioning her on why she didn't do this and didn't do that. I mean, so her chances of lasting in this new position isn't high. Norman Seabrook got busted, so he's probably ruined, or he's gonna have to find a new line of work, just like our previous mayor, the last black mayor we had to take over Fox's position. He was busted for taking kickbacks as well. Forget the brother's name, but I think he was in office for 3 months, and now he's on a radio station. So I mean, here's my thing, man. I mean, black people, we need to, try to find out how to, invest in our own, our own ownership, business ownership, even if it's a small business or something like that, to try to get away and pull together politically and try to protect ourselves from the wrath of these other entities and forces, man, because you can't ask these people to stop. I mean, that's how they make their living. They make their jobs to ensure that we're incarcerated, that we, get the death penalty, that we, stay in solitary confinement for years and years on, that we remain homeless and destitute. That's how the system makes its living. So, in order for you to protect yourself from that, you're gonna have to pull together. You can't ask the bully, "Oh, please stop! Look how wrong you are." I mean, we've been showing, we've been showing them how wrong they've been for at least the last 200 years. Oh, look how wrong you are! Aren't you human? Maybe not. Maybe they're human, maybe they're not. You don't know. So the only way to protect yourself from this is to form, and then form is one. Because whether you're the DA or whether you're the guy getting locked up, man, I mean, you have a better chance of making it being a DA than being the prisoner, but that doesn't mean that you won't be subjected to scrutiny. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen to all races, of people. I mean, any DA probably in that position may have gotten some flack, but when it's a black DA, we all know that he's going to be held accountable. There's not going to be many excuses made for him. Not to say that he did all the right things, but we know good and doggone, good and damn well, it wasn't just these three people who fucked this up. We know that they have they do have control, but they don't run the system, because the right people can have them gone just like that. When they were ready to take off Norman Seabrook's head, they did it easily. Went to his house, boom, he's done. Found evidence of him taking kickbacks. We wanted Robert Johnson step down, boom, he stepped down, just like that. You know what I'm saying? They could so who forced him to do that? Was it just the people, or was it someone who is more in control than he is? So, I mean, just to touch base on that, man. But I think I've exhausted this topic. But yeah, those who are offended, I'm glad. You guys take care, man. Enjoy your for those of you who are off, enjoy your Veterans weekend. You guys take care. All right. All right. This is all out.